Mr. President, I'm going to try to make sense out of some of the discussion that has been going on that has been quite detailed and very esoteric with regard to the Russian rocket engine, which is the main engine in the tail of the Atlas V rocket, the first stage of the Atlas V. Why is there a Russian engine? Well, at the time in the early 90s of the disintegration of the Soviet Union, as the United States went in to try to help secure the nuclear material and nuclear weapons, which was clearly in the interests of the United States and her allies that loose nukes not get in the hands of rogue nations or rogue groups. At the same time, it was clearly in the interests of the United States that we try to prevent all of the experts, the Russian scientists and engineers that had been involved in the Soviet Union rocket program, of which it was an exceptional program, from those scientists and engineers of going to rogue nations or to rogue groups. Read Iran. And thus, it became apparent when United States scientists and engineers and space pioneers visited the Russian engine plant. It was this extraordinary engine that had this high compression with liquid oxygen as a fuel and also kerosene. And as a result, it was clearly in the interest of the United States not only to prevent loose nukes and scientists leaving, it was clear it was interested to keep them employed, remember, in a Soviet Union that was disintegrating at the moment, and therefore it was in the interest of keeping that Russian rocket engine manufacturing facility employing those engineers and scientists. That facility has been called, in one instance, Energomash. In another instance, it's made reference to as Roscosmos. And therefore, private companies in the United States arranged to buy the Russian engines and keep them employed, and at the same time to obtain the plans with the idea that down the road the U.S. would manufacture the same Russian engine, but its manufacture would be done in the United States. That intention was never carried out. And as a result, that leads us to where we are today. Today, we still buy the Russian engines, and on an average, that is costing us $88 million a year. By the way, how much is that of the total expenditures that we buy from Russia in other goods? It's less than 1%. In fact, it's 1/3%, that $88 million a year on average, purchasing this excellent engine. That excellent engine happens to be the workhorse engine that gets the Atlas V, which is our most reliable rocket for military launches, as well as future NASA launches, as well as commercial launches of communication satellites into orbit. Now, the whole fracas that has been engulfing this defense bill here is because now that same Russian Federation that it was so important for us 25 years ago to keep employing its scientists and engineers, that same Russian Federation today is being led by a former KGB agent, Vladimir Putin. And he's doing things that we don't like. He runs over Ukraine and he takes a part called Crimea. And he's pushing into eastern Ukraine, and he's doing all kinds of bad things there that is threatening the freedom of the people of Ukraine. And so naturally, we would not want, as articulated by Senator McCain, we would not want to continue to buy those Russian engines, which is basically helping Vladimir Putin, even though it's a minuscule less than 1/3% of the total goods that we buy from Russia. So that brings us to this point. So how do we get out of the mess? How we get out of the mess is we build our own engine. We should have done that years ago, but now we can actually build a better engine and not plug in to the same rocket, because if it's a different engine, you can't plug in to the same rocket, the Atlas V. You've got to basically plug it into a different rocket. And there is now a competition going on as we speak, developing a replacement engine. In one case, it's called a BE-4. In another case, it's called an Aerojet Rocketdyne engine. That competition's going to continue. But we can't do it overnight. So it's going to take some time. Now, an optimistic estimate might say that the engine is ready about 2019, and then you got to test fire in the new rocket that you've developed. So a realistic time of when the new engine is available is at the end of the year 2022. So what do we do to make sure we have the rockets to have assured access to space between now and the end of 2022? And that's what all this discussion is out here. On the one hand, there is a very successful company called SpaceX. They are now certified with a rocket called the Falcon 9, and that rocket has won some competitions and has put payloads in space, including one defense payload that I know of. There may be more, but I do know that they've been certified for the Department of Defense. Its competitor is the other company called United Launch Alliance, which is a combine of Boeing and Lockheed, and they have been successfully launching the Atlas V without a miss now for years and years, and I think the successful number of rocket launches is something in excess of 50, maybe 60. And thus it's a proven workhorse. So we never want to get to the position that we just have one rocket company, because if something happened, you want to have a backup, because we got to get satellites into space to protect our national security. And we've got to do it over this period of time from now until the end of 2022. And therefore, how do you keep them going alive if you eliminate the ability of being able to buy the Russian engine? That's what all of the very emotional and very well-meaning speeches out here on the floor have been about. In one case, United Launch Alliance. In another case, SpaceX. For the good of the country, we've got to have both until we can develop and test and fly successfully the replacement engine for the Russian engine. As we speak, these discussions, by the way, continue that have been going on over the past several weeks and with intensity over the past few days. It is certainly my hope that we are going to get resolution and can get an agreement on this on a way to go forward so that we can get this issue behind us and we can move on with the defense bill that is so important to the future of this country. So, Mr. President, I wanted to lay out the predicate of what this is all about. When you start getting into the weeds about this number of launches and that number of launches, and all of it boils down to what this senator has just shared. I hope we get resolution, and since I'm basically an optimist, I think we will. Mr. President, I would yield the floor.